My hands were shaking as I stared at the email on my phone. It was 6:47 a.m. on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, my wedding day. The subject line read, "Urgent, report to office immediately." My boss, Mr. Caldwell, had sent it just 12 minutes ago. I read it 3 times, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something different. They didn't. "Myra, I need you in the office by 8 a.m. sharp. The Henderson project cannot wait. This is not optional. Your vacation request is denied effective immediately. Failure to appear will result in termination." My fiancé, James, was still asleep beside me. Our wedding was scheduled for 2 p.m. The venue was booked. 300 guests had been confirmed. My dress hung on the closet door, shimmering in the early morning light. I felt my stomach twist into knots. Caldwell knew about my wedding. I had submitted the request 6 months ago. He had approved it himself. Now, 5 hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, he was demanding I choose between my job and the most important day of my life. I sat on the edge of the bed, my phone clutched in my trembling hands. Tears blurred my vision as I reread the email. How could he do this? I had given 3 years of my life to Caldwell Marketing Solutions. I had worked late nights, sacrificed weekends, and even cancelled family dinners to meet impossible deadlines. And this was how he repaid my loyalty. James stirred beside me, reaching out sleepily. "Hey, beautiful bride," he mumbled with a smile. Then he saw my face. "Myra. What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I just handed him my phone. I watched his expression change from confusion to disbelief, then to pure anger. His jaw clenched as he read Caldwell's message. "He can't do this," James said, his voice tight. "This is illegal. You have approved time off." I shook my head, fighting back sobs. "He can fire me, James. We need my income. Your business is just starting. We can't afford for me to lose this job right now." The weight of our financial reality pressed down on me like a physical force. James pulled me close, but I could feel the tension in his body. "So what are you saying? You're going to work on our wedding day?" His voice cracked slightly. I wanted to scream that of course I wouldn't, that Caldwell could take his job and shove it. But reality was harsh. We had student loans. Rent was due in 2 weeks. James had just launched his graphic design business 3 months ago, and clients were still sparse. My salary at Caldwell Marketing was our safety net. "I don't know," I whispered. "Maybe I can go in for an hour, handle whatever emergency he's invented, and still make it back in time." Even as I said it, I knew how ridiculous it sounded. James pulled back to look at me. "Myra, if you go in there today, he wins. He'll know he can control you forever." He was right, but that didn't change our situation. I glanced at the clock. 7:02 a.m. I had less than an hour to decide whether to show up at the office or risk everything we'd built. I called my best friend and maid of honor, Vanessa, with shaking hands. She answered on the first ring, her voice bright with excitement. "Wedding day. Are you freaking out?" "I'm all ready, Vanessa," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "Caldwell is making me come into work." There was a long silence. Then, "I'm sorry, what? Did you just say, he sent an email an hour ago? He's threatening to fire me if I don't show up by 8. I heard Vanessa take a sharp breath. "Myra, that's insane. That's beyond insane. He approved your time off months ago." "I know," I said miserably. "But he doesn't care. The Henderson project apparently can't wait." Vanessa's voice turned hard. The Henderson project has been done for 2 weeks. I know because my cousin works in that department. This is a power play, Myra. He's testing how far he can push you. My blood ran cold. What? He does this to people, Vanessa continued. He finds their pressure points and squeezes. You need to stand up to him. But standing up to Caldwell meant potentially losing everything. By 7:30 a.m., I had made my decision. I would go to the office, but only for 1 hour. I would handle whatever Caldwell needed, then leave in time to get ready for the wedding. It wasn't ideal, but it was the only compromise I could live with. James drove me in silence. His disappointment was palpable, filling the car like smoke. I'll be quick, I promised as we pulled up to the office building. I'll text you updates. He nodded but didn't look at me. Just, don't let him steal this from us, Myra. Please. I kissed his cheek and stepped out into the cool morning air. The office building loomed above me, its glass windows reflecting the sunrise. I had never felt such dread walking through those doors. The lobby was nearly empty. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I headed toward the elevator. When the doors opened on the 7th floor, I saw my colleague, Felix, standing by the coffee machine. His eyes widened when he saw me. Myra. What are you doing here? Isn't today? Don't ask, I said quietly, walking past him toward Caldwell's office. Caldwell's door was open. He sat behind his massive desk, typing on his computer as if this were any ordinary Friday morning. He didn't look up when I entered. You're 12 minutes late, he said, his eyes still on his screen. I bit back a sharp response. I'm here. What's the emergency with the Henderson project? He finally looked at me, and I saw something in his expression that made my skin crawl. Satisfaction. He was enjoying this. I need you to revise the entire presentation deck. The client wants a different approach. My heart sank. The entire deck. That's 47 slides. That will take hours. Then you'd better get started, he said, turning back to his computer. I need it by noon. Noon. My wedding started at 2. Even if I worked at lightning speed, I would barely have time to get ready. Mr. Caldwell, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Today is my wedding day. You approved my time off 6 months ago. He looked at me with cold eyes. Business needs change, Myra. You're either committed to this company or you're not. I stood frozen in his doorway, my mind racing. This was the moment. I could walk out right now, consequences be damned. Or I could stay and let him win. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps behind me. Felix appeared, slightly out of breath. Mr. Caldwell, I can handle the Henderson revisions. I'm familiar with the project. Caldwell's expression hardened. I didn't ask for your input, Felix. I know, sir, but Myra has approved leave today. I'm happy to step in. I felt a surge of gratitude toward Felix, but Caldwell wasn't having it. The client specifically requested Myra's work. She stays. Felix glanced at me, then back at Caldwell. With respect, sir, that's not your decision, Caldwell snapped. Both of you, get to work. Felix, you can assist Myra. I want this done by noon. No exceptions. He dismissed us with a wave of his hand. Felix and I walked silently to my cubicle. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my access card. I can't believe him, Felix muttered. This is completely out of line. I sat down at my desk and opened my computer. The Henderson presentation file loaded slowly, each second feeling like an eternity. Felix pulled up a chair beside me. Okay, here's what we're going to do, he said quietly. I'm going to handle as much of this as possible. You just supervise and approve. We'll get you out of here. I wanted to hug him. Felix, you don't have to. Yes, I do, he said firmly. What Caldwell is doing is wrong, and everyone in this office knows it. As if summoned by Felix's words, I saw movement near the cubicle entrance. Brianna from accounting appeared, followed by Omar from IT. Then Yolanda from HR. One by one, my colleagues began gathering around my desk. We heard what happened, Brianna said softly. We want to help. I stared at them in disbelief. You guys, you don't have to do this. Caldwell will be furious. Omar shrugged. Let him be furious. You've helped every single person here at some point. It's time we returned the favor. I felt tears welling up again, but this time they weren't from despair. Within 15 minutes, my colleagues had organized themselves into an efficient team. Felix and Brianna tackled the slide revisions. Omar worked on updating the graphics and charts. Yolanda reviewed the content for consistency. I coordinated everything, making quick decisions and approvals. It was the most incredible display of teamwork I had ever witnessed. But every few minutes, I glanced at the clock. 8:47 a.m. 9:15 a.m. 9:33 a.m. Time was slipping away. James texted me, "How's it going? Please tell me you're almost done." I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. At 10:02 a.m., Caldwell emerged from his office. He walked slowly through the cubicles, his expression darkening as he saw the group assembled around my desk. "What is this?" he demanded. Felix didn't look up from his computer. "We're completing the Henderson revisions, sir." As requested. Caldwell's face reddened. I asked Myra to do this, not the entire department. And Myra is supervising, Yolanda said calmly. We're just providing support. That's what teams do. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Caldwell's jaw clenched. Everyone returns to their own work. Now. Nobody moved. I held my breath, waiting for the explosion. But then something unexpected happened. Omar stood up, facing Caldwell directly. Mr. Caldwell, with all due respect, what you're doing today is unacceptable. Myra has approved leave. She should be getting ready for her wedding, not sitting here revising a presentation that isn't even urgent. Caldwell's eyes narrowed dangerously. Excuse me. The Henderson client isn't expecting revisions, Omar continued. I checked the email thread this morning. There's no request for changes. You invented this emergency. The air seemed to leave the room. Caldwell's face went from red to purple. How dare you access confidential client communications? They're not confidential, Brianna interjected. They're on the shared drive. And Omar's right. There's no client request. You're forcing Myra to work on her wedding day for no legitimate business reason. I watched in amazement as my colleagues stood up to the man who had terrorized this office for years. Caldwell looked like he might explode. His hands were shaking with rage. You're all insubordinate. Every single one of you. I can have you fired by the end of the day. Then you'll have to fire us all, Felix said quietly. Because we're not leaving Myra to handle this alone. More colleagues appeared. Antonio from sales. Keisha from marketing. Even quiet Nathaniel from the mailroom. They formed a protective circle around my cubicle. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Caldwell seemed to realize he was outnumbered. His expression shifted from rage to calculation. Fine, he said coldly. Help her finish the presentation. But Myra, you and I will be having a serious conversation about your future with this company on Monday. He turned and walked back to his office, slamming the door behind him. The moment he was gone, I burst into tears. Not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. Vanessa appeared in the cubicle entrance, still in her pajamas with a coffee in hand. I got here as fast as I could. What did I miss? Felix grinned. Just a small workplace rebellion. Nothing major. With everyone working together, the presentation was completed by 10:47 a.m. It was actually better than anything I could have done alone. Felix had refined the messaging, Omar had created stunning new graphics, and Brianna had caught 3 errors in the financial projections that would have embarrassed us in front of the client. It's done, I said, staring at the final slide in disbelief. We actually did it. Omar hit the save button with a flourish. And with time to spare. You can still have your wedding, Myra. I looked around at the faces of my colleagues, people who had sacrificed their own work and risked their jobs to help me. I don't know how to thank you all, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Thank you for having an amazing wedding, Keisha said with a smile. And by sending us pictures. I was about to respond when Yolanda's expression suddenly changed. She was looking at something on her phone. Guys. You need to see this. She turned her screen around. My heart stopped. Someone had been recording everything. The video was already on social media. I recognized the angle. It had been filmed from Antonio's cubicle, capturing the moment when my colleagues had stood up to Caldwell. The caption read, "Boss forces employee to work on her wedding day." Watch what her colleagues did next. Who posted this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Antonio raised his hand sheepishly. I did. I'm sorry, Myra, but what happened here needed to be seen. Caldwell has been abusing his power for years. Someone needed to expose it. I didn't know whether to be angry or grateful. The video already had 300 views. As I watched, the number jumped to 400. Then 600. It's going viral, Vanessa said, refreshing the page. Look at the comments. I scrolled through them. This is workplace abuse. Someone get this woman to her wedding. The colleagues are heroes. That boss should be fired. The shares were multiplying by the second. Within minutes, the video had been picked up by a popular workplace rights account with over 2 million followers. My phone started buzzing with notifications. Friends, family, even people I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me. Caldwell's door flew open. He stormed out, his phone in his hand, his face contorted with fury. Who posted that video? He roared. Take it down immediately. Antonio stood up. I posted it, sir. And I'm not taking it down. The public deserves to know how you treat your employees. Caldwell's hand was shaking so violently he nearly dropped his phone. You're fired. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. You can't fire him for posting a truthful video on his personal social media, Yolanda said calmly. She had her HR manual open on her tablet. That's retaliatory termination. The company could face serious legal consequences. Caldwell whirled on her. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you of company policy, Yolanda replied evenly. Policy that you seem to have forgotten. The video view count had now passed 50,000. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Is this Myra? A professional-sounding woman asked. This is Charlotte Brennan from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about what happened this morning. I hung up on the reporter, my hands shaking. This was spiraling out of control. More calls came in. News outlets, podcasts, even a radio station. The video had exploded across the internet. Within an hour, it had been viewed over 200,000 times. Comments poured in from around the world. People shared their own stories of workplace abuse. Others praised my colleagues for their solidarity. Someone had created a hashtag, #LetMyraGetMarried. It was trending. Caldwell seemed to shrink before our eyes as he watched his authority crumble. His phone was ringing non-stop. I could see the panic in his eyes as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. "Everyone back to work," he said weakly. This is all a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Felix said firmly. "You tried to force Myra to work on her approved wedding day. You created a fake emergency to exert control. And now the whole world knows." Caldwell opened his mouth to respond, but his phone rang again. This time, when he looked at the screen, his face went pale. "It's corporate," he muttered, stepping back into his office and closing the door. Through the glass walls, we could see him pacing, his free hand gesturing wildly as he spoke. The conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. When he emerged, he looked like a completely different person. Defeated. Broken. "Myra," he said quietly. "You're free to go. Enjoy your wedding." I stared at him, waiting for the catch. There had to be a catch. "That's it?" I asked. He couldn't meet my eyes. "Corporate has requested that I take the rest of the day off as well. We'll discuss this situation on Monday." His voice was hollow. As he gathered his things and left the office, nobody said a word. The moment the elevator doors closed behind him, the entire floor erupted in cheers. I looked at the clock, 11:23 a.m. I had less than 3 hours to get ready for my wedding. "Go!" Vanessa shouted, grabbing my purse and coat. "I'll drive you home. We can still do this." I started to pack up my desk, but Felix stopped me. "We'll handle everything here. You just focus on becoming Mrs. James Parker." I hugged him tightly, then hugged everyone else who had stood beside me. These people weren't just colleagues anymore. They were family. As Vanessa and I rushed to the elevator, my phone buzzed again. This time it was James. "Myra, I just saw the video. Are you okay? Are you coming home?" I called him back immediately. "I'm on my way. We're getting married today, James. Nothing is going to stop that." I could hear the relief in his voice. "I never doubted you for a second. That was a lie, and we both knew it. But it was a sweet lie." Vanessa drove like she was in an action movie, weaving through traffic, and running at least 2 yellow lights. We made it to my apartment in record time. My bridesmaids were already there, waiting with my dress, makeup, and enough hairspray to survive a hurricane. They had seen the video too. Everyone had seen the video. "You're a legend," my sister Claire said as she started working on my hair. "That video has like 1 million views now." I couldn't process that information. 1 million people had watched the worst morning of my life turn into something extraordinary. As my bridesmaids transformed me from exhausted office worker to bride, I kept checking my phone. The video was still spreading. News articles were being written. Think pieces about workplace culture were popping up on major websites. Someone had even created a GoFundMe to help with our wedding costs, though I had no idea who started it. "Myra, you need to stop looking at your phone," Vanessa said gently, taking it from my hands. "Today is about you and James. The internet will still be there tomorrow." She was right. I took a deep breath and looked at myself in the mirror. Despite everything, I looked beautiful. The dress fit perfectly. My makeup was flawless. I was actually going to make it. We arrived at the venue at 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to start. My father was waiting outside, his eyes red-rimmed. "I saw what happened," he said, pulling me into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart." "I didn't do anything, Dad. My colleagues did everything." He pulled back and looked at me seriously. "You inspired that loyalty, Myra. People don't risk their jobs for someone who hasn't earned their respect." I hadn't thought about it that way. As I walked toward the entrance, I noticed something strange. There were way more people here than the 300 we'd invited. The parking lot was overflowing. "What's going on?" I asked Vanessa. She grinned. "Well, after the video went viral, some of your colleagues posted about the wedding venue. And people wanted to show their support. So they just showed up." I peeked inside the venue. The place was packed. I recognized some faces from the office, but there were dozens of strangers too. People holding signs that said, "Congratulations, Myra," and "Love wins." I started crying, which made my makeup artist panic. The ceremony was supposed to be intimate and elegant. Instead, it turned into something much bigger and more chaotic. And absolutely perfect. As I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, I saw James waiting for me at the altar. His eyes were shining with tears. Behind him stood his groomsmen, and beyond them, a sea of faces, friends, family, colleagues, and complete strangers, who had come to witness our wedding after seeing what had happened that morning. The officiant, a kind woman named Pastor Hughes, smiled warmly as I took my place beside James. "Well," she said with a chuckle, "I've performed many weddings, but this is the first one that's ever trended on social media." Laughter rippled through the crowd. James took my hands in his. "I'm sorry I doubted you this morning," he whispered. "I should have known you'd find a way." "I didn't find a way," I whispered back. "We found a way. Together." Pastor Hughes began the ceremony. As she spoke about love, commitment, and partnership, I thought about everything that had happened in the past 7 hours. The ceremony was beautiful. When James and I exchanged our vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the venue. Even some of the strangers who had shown up were crying. "I promise to always stand beside you," James said, his voice strong and clear. "To support your dreams, to fight your battles with you, and to never let anyone, especially not a terrible boss, come between us and our happiness." Everyone laughed and cheered. When it was my turn, I looked into his eyes and said, "I promise to never let fear control my choices. To stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. And to remember that I'm never alone, because I have you, and apparently, the entire internet on my side." More laughter and applause. When Pastor Hughes pronounced us husband and wife, the crowd erupted. James kissed me, and somewhere in the back, someone started playing music from their phone. It was chaotic and unconventional, and absolutely nothing like the elegant wedding I had planned. It was so much better. At the reception, people I'd never met came up to congratulate us, and share their own stories of workplace injustice. The reception turned into an impromptu celebration of workplace solidarity. Felix gave a toast that brought everyone to tears. "I've worked with Myra for 2 years," he said, raising his glass. "In that time, she stayed late to help me meet deadlines, covered for me when my kid was sick, and always had encouraging words when I felt overwhelmed. Today, when she needed us, we had the chance to return that kindness. And you know what? It felt amazing. To everyone out there watching this, because yes, someone is definitely filming this too, stand up for each other. Support each other. That's how we change toxic workplace cultures. The room exploded in applause. Antonio stood up next. I want to apologize to Myra for posting that video without asking permission first. I shook my head. Don't apologize. You did the right thing. I posted it because I was angry, he continued. I've watched Caldwell bully people for 3 years. I've seen good employees quit because of his behavior. Today, when he tried to ruin your wedding, something in me just snapped. I couldn't stay silent anymore. As the evening wore on, my phone kept buzzing with notifications. The video has now been viewed over 5 million times. News outlets were running stories about workplace rights and toxic management. Several labor rights organizations had reached out, wanting to use our story to advocate for stronger employee protections. But the most surprising message came at 8:47 p.m. It was from the CEO of Caldwell Marketing Solutions, a man named Mr. Whitmore whom I'd only seen in company-wide emails. Myra, I want to personally apologize for what happened today. Mr. Caldwell's behavior was completely unacceptable and does not reflect our company values. I'd like to speak with you on Monday about how we can make this right. I showed the message to James. What do you think? He squeezed my hand. I think you should hear what he has to say. But remember, you don't owe them anything. He was right. For years, I'd felt like I owed Caldwell Marketing my loyalty, my time, my energy. But loyalty was supposed to go both ways. They had failed me today. My colleagues hadn't. On Monday morning, I walked into the office with my head held high. The atmosphere was completely different. People smiled at me, congratulated me, and asked to see wedding photos. Caldwell's office was empty. Yolanda from HR pulled me aside. Mr. Whitmore wants to see you at 10. Caldwell has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation into his management practices. I nodded, not surprised. At exactly 10 o'clock, I was ushered into the executive suite on the 15th floor. Mr. Whitmore was a distinguished man in his 60s with kind eyes. Myra, thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair. First, I want to apologize. What happened on Friday was inexcusable. We've launched a full investigation into Mr. Caldwell's conduct, and preliminary findings suggest a pattern of harassment and abuse spanning several years. I sat quietly, letting him continue. We'd like to offer you a promotion to senior project manager, with a significant salary increase. You'd be working directly under our VP of Marketing, reporting to someone who actually values work-life balance. I took a deep breath. Can I think about it? Mr. Whitmore seemed surprised by my hesitation. Of course. Take all the time you need. I spent the next week considering my options. The promotion was tempting. The salary increase would solve our financial worries. But every time I walked past Caldwell's empty office, I felt a knot in my stomach. On Friday, exactly 1 week after my wedding, I made my decision. I walked into Mr. Whitmore's office and declined the promotion. I appreciate the offer, I said. But I've realized something this week. I don't want to work for a company that only changes when they are publicly shamed. You had years to address Caldwell's behavior. You only acted because the whole world was watching. Mr. Whitmore looked uncomfortable. I understand your frustration, but I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice, I continued. I've accepted a position with a company that actually prioritizes employee well-being from the start, not just when it's convenient. It felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. As I left his office, I saw Felix, Omar, Brianna, and Yolanda waiting in the hallway. So? Felix asked. I grinned. I quit. The story didn't end there. It never really does. Caldwell was officially terminated 2 weeks later, after the investigation revealed dozens of complaints that had been ignored over the years. 6 other employees quit in solidarity with me, including Felix and Omar. We all found new jobs at companies that actually valued us. The video of that morning eventually reached over 20 million views. It sparked a national conversation about workplace rights and toxic management. Several states introduced new legislation protecting employees from retaliatory scheduling. Antonio became an advocate for workplace reform, speaking at conferences and writing articles. As for James and I, we used some of the money from the GoFundMe, which had raised over $50,000, to take the honeymoon of our dreams. We spent 2 weeks in Italy, eating amazing food and not checking work emails once. Sometimes I think about that morning, standing in Caldwell's office, feeling powerless and alone. I think about how close I came to letting him win. But then I remember what happened next. I remember my colleagues forming a protective circle around my desk. I remember strangers showing up to my wedding to show their support. I remember finding my voice and walking away from a company that didn't deserve me. That day taught me something important. You're never as powerless as you think. And when you stand up for yourself, you inspire others to do the same. That's how change happens. Not through grand gestures or perfect plans, but through ordinary people deciding they've had enough. My wedding day didn't go as planned. It went so much better. Because it became the day I learned what I was truly worth. And no job, no boss, no paycheck could ever take that away from me. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and tap the bell to get notified the moment we drop a new story. And don't forget to like the video to help others find it.